to do is see if I can get a momentum going, and then I can start talking again. What we do here at Willow's Green Permaculture is we grow all our own food. Well beyond organic, well beyond permaculture. We grow our own food using nature as guide and inviting nature into our garden. What I mean by that is we let the animals in. We let them come because in the end they help us out. The animals that come and eat some of our beans, those bean plants where they come and eat, end up producing more beans than the ones that never got touched once. So they just provoke the beans to produce more, to put out more. They're what's the word? Ils sont en train de les tailler, trimming them for us. There's another word. Ça m'échappe. Well, here's a thought. Here are the animals that help us. Okay, we have the frogs and the toads. We have the squirrels and chipmunks. You'd be surprised to find that out. We have the deer and the birds, of course. The insects, everybody knows about the insects, how they help out. Pollinate. The birds come and eat the insects that might eat our plants. And when they're in there eating the insects, they're also fertilizing our garden for us. Maybe also planting other plants for us, which is really nice. The squirrels and the chipmunks, surprisingly, they help us because they replant all sorts of things for us. For instance, this fall we're going to get a second harvest of peas because the squirrels and the insects harvested a whole bunch of our peas and replanted them all over the garden. There are now more peas in our garden than there were in the spring when I planted them to harvest. What else did I say? The frogs and the toads, well, they'll eat all the slugs for us and the snails. Very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. And the deer and likely also the birds and the chipmunks and the squirrels, they come and they eat some of our beans, and when they do that, those bean plants where they ate at just go crazy and end up producing 2 or 3 times more or 5 times more than they would have normally. Our bean plant, where we have beans that have been, let's say, gnawed at by animals, and where they haven't been, when we compare, the ones that were visited by animals produce maybe at least 3 times more per plant than the other ones. And once again, whenever the animals come into our garden, well, they're going to leave their little gifts that they plant for us, native plants and flowers and so on. Another plant that we have growing everywhere that we didn't have to plant this year is ground cherries, once again. I mean, I did plant a couple, but most of our ground cherries, they were planted by animals. Another animal that helps us is the mole, because it comes and eats the grubs that would otherwise eat at the roots of our plants, including, for example, our potatoes. So the moles come and they might disturb the plants a little bit, but Generally, they don't make it, so they don't kill the plants. I don't think I've seen that happen yet. They'll come and maybe disturb it because they make little tunnels under the ground looking for those grubs. But so they help us a great deal, those moles. And all of those burrowing little animals, the moles, the mice, the voles, well, they're aerating our garden for us. You know, sometimes if we're in a sudden need for some really loose soil, because we need some to put into a pot, and we don't happen to have any compost with us or something, we'll just go look for one of the dozens and dozens of little molehills that we have everywhere, not only in the garden but outside of the garden. There's some nice freshly arable soil there, provided us by the moles, which is really nice. It's not like going to invade an anthill, because anthills also provide nice big, we have some really big anthills, and we really needed soil. Well, we could take them from then, but then we'd be putting those ants back to work, because we'd be wrecking their hill. But yeah, we try and leave the anthills alone, because those ants, they they also loosen up the soil for us, which is really, really nice. I'll see in the garage if I need to shorten these stems. For now, we'll just keep them at this length. Let me think a bit. Oh, it's just amazing the number of plants that we have. You know, I have a bunch of pots where I'll try planting stuff in them, and I'll put them in my nursery over the winter where they're protected, you know, where they're partially buried. Some of the stuff survives, some of it doesn't. But whether it survives or not, that pot will have stuff growing in it the following year anyway, that we planted or that we didn't. Often I'll put more than one kind of thing in there, and whichever thing survives, well, great. You know, same thing when in the spring I'll plant lots and lots of pots, maybe more than I need, of different vegetables. And after I've transplanted them, well, I'll keep the other ones outside in case some things don't survive and I have to replant and so on. It's surprising how long they survive in those little pots, especially if I keep them here in this forested area where they get sunlight, partial sunlight, and also rain and shade, etc., so they last longer. And then sometimes it'll be very much beyond the point where they'll do anything in the garden and I haven't found something for them, but then I'll put something else in those pots because they're already prepared, because the other plants will have gone maybe dormant. For instance, I'll put in some walking onions in those pots. Each of these bunches, about 10 bunches here. Each bunch should be enough for at least on its own 2 loaves of bread, and mixed with 1/3 wheat flour or 1/3 corn flour, then there should be enough for 3 loaves of bread.